Hi, if you're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the constant globalist or government propaganda from a globalist controlled government here in Australia, as in all across the West now. The globalists control all the governments, but we've got a situation, not only here, but you see it in the United States and Canada and so on as well, where they want to ramp up the mass immigration. So in Australia, they want to bring in 400,000 plus people in the next 12 months. Some of these will be family reunion or chain migration, as the Americans call it. So there's going to be a lot of illiterate peasants and so-called. So, those sort of people coming in. They won't be migrants with skills or English-speaking capability, far from it. And they'll just be a drag on the economy, as I believe. But we've got a number of things that are contradictory, and I just want to go through those. Now, before I get to those statistics, I was out at a fairly fashionable sort of upmarket area with a few nice restaurants and a very nice park and so on. And it was such a nice day that we decided to get some takeout rather than sit in one of the restaurants. And so we sat sort of outside in the park. Anyway, two like minibuses, sort of 12-seater minibuses pulled up, and out came a bunch of very handicapped young Negro people, sort of, I would say, mid to late teenage years, and again, very handicapped. And they came with a bunch of carers that were young people, I'd say, early to mid-20s type age range for the. Now, the ratio of carers per handicapped Negro or black person was 3 to 1. So, we've got four handicapped black people and 12 carers. Now, I don't know what sort of care these people are supposed to give or provide, or how it is that these which looked genetic. It didn't look like they'd just fallen over and busted their ass yesterday. Far from it. It appeared to be genetic. And how would these four black kids get into the country? How would they get here if they were migrants or refugees? Why would you pick people that handicapped? And especially when they need 3 carers and 2. And these minibuses, by the way, weren't some old cars that were well beaten and well used. They looked like they'd driven off the new car lot the day before. So. Now the carers all just got together under like an awning area, and they got takeout. And from what was being said, because they were in the table next to us, from what was being said, that was being paid for, the food, by the taxpayer. Now these 4 handicapped children, again, I'd say they were somewhere around 16 years old, give or take. And one of them just went and sat in the dirt and started rolling around, making type sounds. And the others sort of something similar. I don't know who's taking care of the laundry there. They were fouling themselves and so on. So, but the carer, all who were white, by the way, and there was. The two supervisors were women, and the flunkies were all boys or men, young men. I don't know how many were gay. There'd been a mix, I would guess. A couple of gay guys, a few straight guys, that sort of thing. But there were no brown or black people amongst the carers, which struck me as a little odd. But hey, what do I care? So they were there. Now, one of the areas that's supposed to be in huge demand is carers for handicapped people. And the government at all levels are shoveling vast sums of money into this. And I don't know how are these people ending up in Australia or any Western country. You're taking, an illiterate black person with no qualifications, no work experience from a war-torn country. They'll have huge troubles integrating into Western society, and then they've got genetically handicapped children that are going to require vast resources to look after and take care of. So I don't know what's happening, and I can't fathom the thinking behind it. Now, I tried to strike up a bit of a conversation with these very, very woke, very leftist type carers, and they didn't seem to give a shit about. The thing that got me is they were ideologically very concerned about mass immigration should be allowed. Black people are oppressed, evil white folk. They were very much on board with that, but they just left these. The young black boy who was just rolling around in the dirt and so on. They made no effort to entertain or engage or anything with these kids. And when they failed themselves, they noticed it, and they just kept on talking. So all they did was talk and text and talk in that very young person sociology degree. And there was this guy, and I was like, and then and he was like, and then I was like, and then he was like, and oh yeah, so totally, yeah. And they just spoke in that sociology kid type speak, and that's all they did. I didn't see them attend once while I was there to these handicapped black kids. So if this is where the worker shortage is, are we artificially creating a worker shortage that should never exist and then throwing vast sums of taxpayer money at it? It makes no sense to me. Now, these people are not well paid. It doesn't pay big bucks, but they're creating massive hierarchies of supervision around what as far as I can tell, it's nothing more than a scam. All the supervisory levels are being given to political hacks and goons to sit the top of. While the flunkies, the poorly paid flunkies, do the running around, supposedly helping these people again, who, in my view, shouldn't be here in the first place. Why would you bring these people out? Now, you can say, if you look at the black sort of view of the communal view of things, well, when we've come to a rich country, and whatever in the black mentality, everybody shares everything. No one owns things personally. So they've come to a country and they expect everything here that exists, the nice cars, the houses, the yachts, the waterfront mansions, that belongs to everybody, because that's the mentality of the African in the village, which, by the way, is very similar mentality that you see in the United States. The black people there have the same view. You look at say all the very rich sports people, whether it be boxers or anyone else, they believe that the vast sums of money they've made, the gazillions, that's something that they should share with their clan, their tribe, their wider family, their third cousins, and so on. So there's this army of parasites taking the money and wasting it and pissing it up against the wall and then coming back for more. But that's their view. What I have is should be shared, and that's the black activist view today. You white people should share what you have with us. It's not right that you believe in capitalism and private property, and you own something, you work for something. You should share it all with us, whether it be your wealth, your housing, everything should be shared. So that to some extent, these carers seem to have taken on that mentality. Well, these people have a right to come to this. They have a right to come to a rich country. They do. Where is it? Oh, they have a right. And it's a moral right. And these people who are handicapped, well, they can't get the care they need in Africa, so they have to come to a rich white country where they can get the care they need. I mean, holy. So that's how simple-minded, these people are. But coming back to the stats now since the pandemic, or since the pandemic has been officially declared over, the workforce participation rate has declined. Now, some say it's between 1% and 3% and so on. But if you look at say in the case of, say it's 3%, you look at the case, say the United States, that's 5 million fewer workers. And if you look at a much smaller country like Australia, that's let's say 3% that it's cited here, that's still 500,000 plus workers that are as in the workforce participation rate has declined. Now, from that, they say, well, there's a fewer, it's recovered fully since the pandemic, which it hasn't, because there's fewer people participating in the workforce. The other thing is that the amount of jobs being advertised is 25% less than it was pre-pandemic. So there's 25% fewer jobs being advertised. That would suggest a huge contraction in demand for workers. And yet the government is saying that there's a worker shortage, and this can only be made up by mass immigration of illiterate peasants that don't speak a word of English and have no skills. Now, if they were bringing out people as migrants with real skills who could speak English, so that's different. But they're not. They're bringing out illiterate peasants, which would suggest that whatever work is available is really at the very bottom end of the wage scale. Now, to support this is that if you look at the mathematics of where the average wage falls in the number of jobs, so how many jobs are above and below the average wage. So you kind of do a combination of the median and the average really to come at this one. But the idea is the average wage should be sort of right in the middle. But if you start looking at the amount of jobs in the various categories of pay, then you find that the average wage is actually is declining. That is the amount of people who are below the average wage. If you look at advertised jobs, the amount of people below the average wage in terms of advertised jobs, something like 70% are below the average, again, of advertised jobs, and 30% above the average. So this clearly suggests that the people in the top wage categories are declining in terms of the overall number of workers, so that there's more and more people that are living a subsistence wage. So for every one job that's for example, every one job that's created in the top 10 percent of wage earners in terms of money earned, there are 10 jobs being created at the very bottom end. So this is the ratio of things that are happening here in terms of wealth creation, wealth distribution, and the amount of jobs that are out there, and indeed what they pay. So we're being fed the most terrible and horrible lies by all Western governments at the moment, and this is a classic example of the type of lies that they're peddling. Now, the globalists just want more and more black and brown peasants coming into the West. They don't care what lies, what grotesque untruths, what misrepresentations are told, what bullshit justifications are used. They don't care. We're just bringing out more people, and if you don't like it, you're a damn fascist Nazi. You're probably Hitler. But they're using this excuse of there's a worker shortage. Now, there's been, looking at the worker shortage, again, the amount of time it takes for a job to clear off the internet job boards is a good indication of just how long it's taking to fill a job. And it's not taking that long. The bigger paid jobs take longer because they're putting people through more interviews. But anything up to 1.5 times the average wage, anything up to that is being filled very quickly. When I say very quickly, under 3 weeks or less. So with a very small percentage taking longer than that. So there's certainly no worker shortage, and there's no shortage of people applying for the jobs. So I'm looking at a job here. I mentioned this a little while ago. There's another job at the same company. They again applied for, or they put up a job for like a technician, equivalent of a technician, and it's not in a downtown location in a big city. It's probably a 2 hours drive outside of the nearest big city. And yet they got over 20 applications. Now, not all of those were superbly qualified, but they were, again, surprised by the amount of people that were decently qualified for that role. So there's clearly no shortage. And when you've got those sort of numbers applying for a reasonably specialised technical role, then the employment market, if you will, or is awash with candidates if you're getting that sort of response. So that I just can't see any signs of shortage. Now there are situations where the local, and I've mentioned this before, that one of the local pizza shops is complaining constantly about they can't get workers to deliver pizzas. Now I'm not sure whether I agree with that, but there are a few things, a few issues that are here. It's quite expensive to run. They've got delivery vehicles and motorbikes and things like that, but they don't want to pay for the petrol, so they're trying to sucker people into having their own vehicle. So that they're trying that on. So the terms of employment are really they're fiddling around with those. Also, they don't want to. They want people to be available. We're going to need you on Monday night or Saturday night, whatever, 4 hours or 6 hours, whatever it might be. But if business is a little slow on that night, they say, okay, I want you for 6 hours. You have to be available. Call us at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and we'll let you know whether or not we need you. So that person is put aside that evening or that night to work, only to really not be booked into work at all, but instead we want you to be on standby at your expense and fuck your night up, and then you have to call us to say whether or not you're needed, and that's and they're constantly these businesses that are complaining they can't get people are putting those sorts of barriers in the way. They're shooting themselves in the foot, I think, putting barriers in the way of giving people some sort of reliable employment. Now they say that, look, it's $25 an hour plus you get some tips. What's your problem? Now I was talking to one of the Pizza Hut owners, and look, why don't you give people a fixed say, okay, you're going to go minimum 4 hours on this night or this day, and the guy wants to have it both ways. Oh no, I don't want to have to pay people if I don't need them. Why should I pay them if I'm not making any money? No, I understand that point, but then you're in the wrong business, buddy. If it's that unpredictable, then you can't offer home delivery and these, you just can't offer it. But I have to offer it because it's a good selling point. Well, fine, then you have to build that into your price. Oh, I can't, it's too competitive, and so on. So here's someone that wants to be able to offer all the services, but not have to pay the price for that, and then screams, well, but if I had people, peasants from the subcontinent of India, living 20 to a one-bedroom apartment, they would do it. Because they've got nowhere else to go. There's nothing else they can do. They have to take this sort of work because that's the best they're going to get. So I want lots more of those people around to artificially reduce the price of reduce wages, not reduce wages, but reduce working conditions. And that's how I want to do it. And that's how I'm going to deliver a service as the Pizza Hut owner or the pizza shop owner. So really the demand for labour exists only in the lower paid jobs with hazardous and uncertain working conditions. And say in the case of people who are being hired to care for imported migrant handicapped people who by the way, none of these kids, they were so handicapped that they didn't even, they couldn't even conceive where they were or what day it was. It was they were just gone. And employ young people at shit paid jobs to do that. Now, these people are getting back at their employers, in effect. They're not tending to those handicapped kids. And they get to drive nice cars and get to sit in a park and have, take out burgers or whatever. And they just sit and have it's a social time. It's purely socializing with other people that share their views, and they just, again, talk that sociology talk. But that's not a real job. Those kids, handicapped kids from Africa, shouldn't even fucking be here. And those young people who are supposed to be looking after them don't give a shit about them. So they're getting back at, if you like, the system by not giving care to the people they're supposed to be and sponging off it as much as they can. So we're seeing a dilution of intrinsic and real value in the work people are doing and the work they're required to do. And that's playing out, I think, all across the employment sphere through other means such as affirmative action and race and gender quota hiring. You've been on Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.